Make that big boss less special. It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level. Second level. Second level gaming. Second level.
Let's test your memory. Do you remember who I am? I'm worried that you are holding back.
Supermassive is one of the most well-trusted and VR-savvy development teams in the industry, having proved themselves to release excellent content and to have been working side by side with Sony on the 2018 pipeline for PSVR. The two big games we were sat twiddling our thumbs waiting for were the Inpatient and Bravo team, both expected to receive killer reviews and knock it out of the park as far as a platform is concerned.
Calm? You kidding? What the hell is wrong with you? Are you trying to get us killed?
So imagine my surprise when I wake up the morning of the release for the Inpatient and see the VR community collectively losing its shit. On one hand, you had people singing its praises and saying it's one of the best horror experiences they've ever gone through. On the other, probably bigger hand, there were complaints of move implementation, scare factor, and a brand new term that I happen to love, noodle arms. Now, I knew the Inpatient was ambitious. If you've been watching the podcast over the last few weeks, you'll know we've discussed Supermassive's attempt at an extra level of immersion with things like 3D binaural audio and haptic surface feedback, meaning when your in-game hands touch a surface, your Move controller lets out a little vibration, all in the name of immersion. Now, considering the amount of care gone into this game in trying to achieve something truly special, how could it have all gone so wrong, I thought. Well, luckily for me, I don't have to rely on other people's opinions to make my own, so I dived in headfirst and played through the game multiple times before forming my own opinion. And it is as follows.
Curiosity killed the cat. Let's get you ready for bed. Lights out soon.
The first thing you notice about the Inpatient is that the humans in the game seem large. Like semi-giant status large. It's weird at first when you're sat down for so long, but eventually you stand up and notice that you too are a very large human being. As a 5'5" guy in real life, this was a little jarring, but put my mind at rest a little bit concerning scale issues. The second thing that will blow your mind a little is that they really tried very hard to allow for full-length arms in this game, with mixed results. I have to applaud Supermassive for the attempt. When it works, it really works. If you place a hand on a table or against a door or glass window, it'll actually feel as though your character is changing up their own positioning in an attempt to mirror a real-life position as much as possible. The downside here is that oftentimes your hands get stuck in surfaces and the tactile feature is a little weird. And seemingly simple tasks like picking up a piece of paper feel slightly more labored than they need to be. It's hard to get mad at the company for trying to improve immersion, but this was definitely one of the most off-putting aspects of the game. You have to make very kind of obvious drawn-out movements to simply raise an arm in the game, as they tend to go into a side resting mode by themselves if you're not actively flailing them around, and boy, can they flail. I don't know who coined the term noodle arms, but God bless them. As funny as it is accurate, if you start spinning your controllers around or catch an elbow or something on a piece of furniture, the results are immersion-shatteringly hilarious. The amount of times I felt myself noodling it up to another character and saying out loud, "Does this look normal to you, Doc?" was in the double digits. Was it fun? Yes. Are you supposed to have fun in a horror game? Not really. The actual movement itself I thought was fine. You hold the left move button to move forward and swing the right move left or right with its button held down to turn in those directions. I actually found it quite intuitive, minus the having to point it behind you to do a 180. I think a lot of these issues people have with the movement can honestly be solved by just treating the game as though you were really there. People have a tendency to go a little batshit in VR, flinging things around and standing entirely too close to things. Once I started treating the game like I was truly that character, keeping my distance from objects unless necessary, I had a far easier time of things. The movement speed is slow, but this is a horror game. If you were stuck in an insane asylum where something had gone horribly wrong and were facing a deep, dark corridor with a wolf staring you down at the other end, you'd probably be moving slow too. Maybe they could have implemented a run option, but honestly, I think the game plays out a lot more like an interactive movie than a video game, so I was fine with the slow strolls down dark and eerie corridors. So, slightly janky controls aside, let's talk story. The game's narrative is pretty great. It unfolds at an odd pace, but it definitely begins to ramp up as you play on. As far as scares, I'm sad to report the hardened horror vets amongst you will be let down. There's a few jumpy moments that feel a little cheap, and some genuinely disturbing ones too. When I knew something was coming, I couldn't help but smile and allow the scare to greet me. On a few occasions, this really made me happy, and I loved the outcome, even if it wasn't what I would call genuinely scary. I could still appreciate the effort that went in to try and create that atmospheric moment. The butterfly ripples definitely don't feel as sweeping as they did in Until Dawn. The few butterfly ripple decisions you do get to make don't really change things up as much as I would have liked, but it's still nice to have the option there. Speaking of options, quite literally, one of the immersion factors that was kept in the game was the ability to speak which option you wanted to select when given a choice on how to respond to a question. I really enjoyed this idea, and relished in acting out the role of asylum inmate with no idea what was happening to him. So if you can get past the noodle arms, the lack of genuine scares, and the seemingly useless choice options, what's left? Honestly, a pretty decently immersive narrative tale. It's short and pricey for the length. I think $25 to $30 would have been much more acceptable than the premium $40 price tag it has now. However, it's all kind of a matter of perspective. If you consider it as paying to be inside of a very immersive horror movie for 2 hours, you'll probably really enjoy it. If you thought you were going to get a Resident Evil 7 killer, you will be very let down. The ending is abrupt, and despite kind of answering most of the questions you might have had during the game, it does leave you wanting more. Pro tip: stay until after the credits if you want to see how the game truly ties into Until Dawn if you get the bad ending. So there you have it. Despite its many flaws, by the time the credits rolled, I was quite content with the experience. Most of its major issues are patchable, but it definitely reached for the moon and fell a little short. I think the immersion level is what saves it from being a footnote. They really did do a stunning job of making you feel like you were truly in the environment and interacting with the various people you cross paths with. It's just that due to a few questionable decisions, this immersion can get broken with relative frequency. When it works, it really works. And when it doesn't, it really doesn't. Should you run out and drop $40 on this experience right now? Probably not. Don't let people convince you it's an awful game, though. It's really not. It's just not worth $40. Supermassive will hopefully learn some lessons from this, and we can only hope that Bravo Team turns out to blow our socks off. Thanks a lot for watching.
Hey, Mr. Sandman, come over here. Another patient on the loose. Cue the three-ring circus. Not like it doesn't happen once a week around here. They'll have him doped and drooling in no time. The hell else could it be?
It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level.